Having creaky or stiff shoulders is not something that anybody really enjoys, mostly because it kind of creates pain then whenever you have to, reach behind you to get your arm in a jacket or through a seatbelt or reach overhead. If those things cause you pain, you should seriously consider implementing some kind of lacrosse ball work into your life or some variation thereof. And by doing that, you may find that you actually create more free shoulders, reduce pain, and in general, that's going to benefit you. But also, talking about rowing specifically, you're going to get greater range of motion, more pull through the handle, and of course, that means better performance. Let's get into it. Now, when it comes to choosing lacrosse balls or some variation thereof, you have a bunch of options. And this goes outside of what I have here as well. You've got your garden variety lacrosse ball. This is probably $3 to $5 on Amazon. You can pick these up in pretty much any color you want. Next up, this is from Rumble Roller, and this is just a knobby guy that is going to be significantly more painful because it's gonna hit pressure points and be a bit more focused of a press when you're actually working on the shoulder, which can be both good and bad. This comes in a variety of stiffnesses. So I have one that's much harder than this and it doesn't have any give, whereas this one has some give. But you can see those little knobby guys, those are what make this thing so effective. So there's an option there. Don't know the price on this, but they're not gonna be terribly expensive. And then you have TP Therapy. I've linked to them forever for their foam rollers, but they also make a really great product with this. And this is just essentially 2 of their branded lacrosse balls inside of a little sock that can tie shut. And what's interesting is the balls inside some of them come to a bit of a point so that you can, if you wanted to, kind of get a little bit of this action in, but the rest of the time you're getting this kind of action. And then if you ever wanted to work on your spine, for example, your T-spine or your thoracic spine, your thorax, this will work so that your vertebrae would run down the center and you wouldn't be putting this on your actual vertebrae and instead you'd be working the tissue on the sides. The point being, you can choose whatever you want. I would suggest having something like this around because these tools are so useful, but what matters most is how you use it. So let's talk about how we can use lacrosse balls in some form or variety to improve the way that your shoulder girdle moves so that we can reduce pain and improve performance. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm Shane Farmer. This is Dark Horse, where you build the life that you want to live, and we just generally use rowing or mobility to help you get there. So I just want to start with a little bit of a note. Anybody can do this kind of work. You don't have to be some kind of a fitness expert or 10 years into a fitness journey. You can be doing this on day one because it's only going to help your body. And think of this as you are your own chiro, massage therapist, body healer. You're doing it to yourself, so you're saving yourself a ton of money. But yes, it is going to be uncomfortable. Just know that going into it. It doesn't all feel great, otherwise everybody would do it. So with that being said, you can do this from beginner to advanced, whatever your fitness journey is, this is going to be good for you either way. And if you want to extend beyond just the shoulders, make sure that you're tuning in. At the end, I'm going to give you a video in which you can go through a full body mobility that actually doesn't take any of these tools. And that's only going to help you move that entire body a little bit better so that you can then get into your workouts or the rest of your day feeling great. Now, the majority of the work with these will be done on the floor. However, there is one that we can do from a standing position. So I'm gonna go ahead and address that first, and then we'll take it to the floor so you can see all the things that we can do surrounding the shoulder to help you move. All right, so I said that you could use the wall as a good resource. Well, it does help to have some kind of, this is a yoga block, for example. You could use a big thick book, that would work too. Something that's going to just move the ball off of the surface of the wall and give you a little bit more leverage to be able to work your body into the ball. Now, let's talk about the intention of what this ball does. It essentially acts as like a masseuse's hand or fist, right? To be able to really work into the soft tissue that supports every girdle in your body, meaning every joint. They're all connected with soft tissue and musculature, and all of that is holding your body together, which is a good thing. But over time, as fascia starts to grip and bind down because we get frozen into different positions. If you work at a keyboard all day, that shoulder probably rotates forward and you spend a lot of the day here because from working at a keyboard, which I actually do quite a bit, and I have to be cognizant of this, you then go to a car and you drive in a car and then you go home and you sit in a chair. If you've noticed, most chairs tend to put you in this position. So what that means is that all of these positions start to reinforce in your body. So if this is where you live, then this is where you're gonna live. Things are not gonna be easy to unglue from this unless we start doing work like this. And that's what the ball is for at the end of the day. Now I'm gonna stick with just this orange ball, mostly because of its bright color, so it's gonna be easier for you to see. So what I would do, for example, to start off, now you could actually do most of these things either on the floor or standing up. You can choose how you wanna work on it. I'm gonna start by showing you what to do with your pec. as well as this upper delt. You can work on this entire corner area here, which can be part of a restriction of a shoulder. If this gets tight, maybe you've been and done a ton of bench press work or push-ups in your life, well, often that shoulder will get pulled forward because of that work as well. Our goal is to then try to free up the tissue in your chest as well as in the shoulder on the front side of your body. That's going to, once we loosen it up, allow the shoulder to settle back a little bit and move back a couple degrees. And so what we would do is take this ball with your elevated surface, you're going to place it on the wall, and then I'm going to place it into that chest position. And then what I can do is move and manipulate my shoulder in different ranges of motion here. So I can take this hand and reach it behind my back, and what you'll find is that frees up that tissue pretty well. And so now I can lean, and the more you lean, the more work you're going to do, and this is going to be up to your tolerance. How much pressure can you put into that ball? Whew. And you're gonna find all sorts of hot spots there, and your goal is to seek out the tighter spots. And the more you can seek those spots out, and the more time you can spend once you find them, the better. Now what happens is that if you can find a hot spot, let's say that, I don't know, right here is particularly painful. Well, what that's telling you is let's spend a little bit more time there. And so to do that, I may put the hand behind the back, or I may reach my arm back like this, which exposes it in a different way. And then I'm just going to breathe and try and relax the tissue as I lean against the ball, of course, to try and let the tissue slowly relax and let the ball penetrate into the tissue. The more that happens, the better the work is going to be, because you are relaxing and allowing this to massage you versus fighting it and being tense. You always have to relax at some point to allow this thing to do any work, just like you do if you go into a massage, right? The masseuse needs you to be relaxed in order to get any work done. Well, the same goes for this. So that is a good starting point. Now you can change how much you can leverage this by the way that you place the block or the book, whatever it may be, again, into that front shoulder girdle. Another thing you can do is by putting it there, if I'm in the chest still, what I can do is now take my arm and move through a range of motion here as if I was just creating different ways that my shoulder moves on a day-to-day basis. You reach overhead, right? Maybe you reach over your head, not overhead, but over your head. Maybe you reach forward, right? And these are all things that you can do. If I, for example, went into a doorway and put it on the door trim, well, then I've got room to move my arm forward and backward. And what you'll notice is that the muscle tissue in there has to flex or relax depending on what you are doing with the arm, and that's going to either feel better or worse when you have the lacrosse ball doing the work in there. Now let's go to the floor so I can show you some of the more painful but beneficial things that you can do, especially on the posterior side of that whole shoulder setup. All right, next up, you're going to take this lacrosse ball and you're gonna find your way onto your back. And what we are going to end up doing now is attempting to free up a lot of the tissues that surround the scap, because often those can get lengthened and tight in that lengthened position, similarly to how the muscles at the front of the body will get short and tight. Well, if those are getting short, something on the other side that is intended to balance the shoulder and keep it seated in kind of a perfect position has to give way as well. So while these may get short, this might get long. Now that lengthening also needs to kind of be re-triggered or not broken down, but needs to be worked on so that that scap, that kind of hand-like bony protuberance on the back of your body, is able to move smoothly as it's intended to. And that's really going to help with that shoulder movement, is because the scap is where so many different things connect that are all responsible for or assist in shoulder movement. So if we can begin to free up tissues that sit between the spine and the scap, or around the scap, or even on the scap to a light degree, you never want to be too intense on the scap itself, you can do a little bit of work to help free up some of the little accessory tissues that might be overburdened with movement, because often that can create shoulder pain. For example, I had maybe a year and a half of left shoulder pain that I could not for the life of me figure out what was causing it. No matter how many different healers, acupuncturists, massage therapists, nobody could quite figure out what was wrong with it, because it was so minuscule that it was tough to track down. And I was honestly concerned that I had some kind of tear. Well, after frankly enough rest and body work, it's gone now. It took a while of resting, but what I believe it was one of those small little accessory guys on the backside of my shoulder that was just causing discomfort in a very specific way. And so to me, that felt like a bigger deal because it created pain whenever I would put on a jacket. That was almost always the thing that would cause pain. So to help free up this stuff, we're going to start with the back. You're gonna take your lacrosse ball and you're going to put it between your shoulder blade and your spine, not on either, but in the soft tissue between them, right in there, okay? And then you're going to lay back onto your back. And from there, you're going to start low. So you're gonna roll so that it's almost in like your mid-back. Now you can do this with either your hips up or your hips down. Hips up is going to make it slightly more intense. Hips down is going to give you a little bit of relief. You're gonna start with some internal and external rotation of the arm, okay? This again is all about flossing tissue. You're creating movement of the tissue underneath you, and with the ball pinching and holding it in place. Now from here, I'm going to take my arm, reach it out with my thumb towards the ground, and then I'm going to come across my body, flipping my hand as I do so. So I'm going to flip over and then reach, down and across my body, and that one creates some heat for me. That creates some unique feelings, okay? So that is going to be one range of motion. So what I would do is I'd start with 10 of these, okay? Then I would work to 10 crossovers. And it doesn't have to be static. You can be pretty fluid with these, right? And then from there, I'm going to take my arm, reach down, and I'm going to like pull my elbow into my side, and then I'm going to reach up to the sky. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking my scap, and I'm actually rotating it by taking that arm down and then get back to your ball. And then reaching up and overhead. So I'm creating rotation of that scap that is going to help me again because this is pinning the tissue down, and then by moving the scap, or I guess it's more like this, by moving the scap, I kind of stretch those tissues under the ball while the ball's holding it in place. So you could do 10 of those. So we'll start with internal, external rotations. Then you're gonna take those cross bodies, okay, rotating the thumb as you do so. And then you're gonna do 10 reaches down to the rib cage and up and overhead as straight as you can. And then you're going to roll that way. So I'm gonna start with it low. And then after I've done that, I'm going to scoot down. So now the ball rolls up higher, and I'm going to do the same thing, okay? And I'm gonna go through that same process. Now again, to add intensity, lift the hips, and you'll find that that definitely challenges you. Okay, and you've got your basic series with a lacrosse ball for your shoulder, and that's where you want to start. Begin by loosening up those tissues. Now, the thing that I showed you at the beginning where you're standing up with that lacrosse ball on the wall, you can also do this now on the floor, and that is going to help significantly as well. So you just go face down to the floor, hand on your back, palm up towards the ceiling, ball goes in, and you're able to do a decent amount of work here. I want to as well advise you, don't start putting this on your bony surfaces. You don't want to put that kind of pressure on those bony surfaces, but this little guy can do amazing things for the shoulder itself, and the more time you spend with this, the better, because you're addressing it. You're almost bringing your mind's attention to your body, and the more that you do that, the more you'll be cognizant of, am I creating pain in my body that I didn't realize I was causing? Do I live my life in this internally rotated position of my shoulders, or do I spend time getting my shoulders back, freeing up my body for better movement? And all of these things are up to you to interpret and understand what you're doing in your daily life to help yourself. If that felt good and you feel like, okay, that addressed some stuff that I didn't realize I had, or maybe you've been looking for a solution for those shoulder problems and you want more, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it so you get alerted when I come out with new videos. And on top of that, I want you to come join me for this full body 15-minute mobility video in which I take you from head to toe, how to get your body warmed up starting the day or before you start a workout.